Good evening, hello and welcome. You're watching Viewpoint. I'm Anusha Soni. After a hard-hitting speech by Prime Minister yesterday, the opposition parties led by the Congress have upped their ante. The political discourse has clearly gone up. They've criticized the Prime Minister's speech for being high on verbose and low on substance. Rahul Gandhi made yet another stinging attack on the union government, breaking up the Manipur issue. The highlight on the last working day of the parliament was the protest staged by the Congress party over the suspension of Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary. Chaudhary has been suspended from Lok Sabha for causing repeated disturbances, and his case has been referred to the privilege committee. With the privilege motion and more importantly, the no confidence motion being defeated after a heightened political optic-full debate on the floor of the House, has the time of the parliament really been utilized judicially? If the intent of the opposition was to seek answers from the government on key issues like Manipur, was there actually any substantial discussion that ensued? And with Manipur issue being the key attack from Rahul Gandhi and the opposition, will the charge of misgovernance really stick? Would it matter in the run-up to 2024? Our focus on Viewpoint tonight.
Prime Minister refuses to stop the fire. He wants Manipur to burn. He allows Manipur to burn. मणिपुर में महीनों से आग लगी हुई है, लोग मारे जा रहे हैं, बलात्कार हो रहा है, बच्चों को मारा जा रहा है। और अगर आपने देखा होगा कल, तो प्रधानमंत्री हंस हंस के बोल रहे थे, मुस्कुरा रहे थे, जोक्स क्रैक कर रहे थे, हंस रहे थे। When we went to the Meitei area, we were categorically told that please ensure, we want you to come, we love you, but please ensure that if there are any cookies in your security detail, they do not come into our area or we will shoot them. When I went into the cookie area, we were told the same thing.
This is all bogus claim. They never wanted discussion on any issue because they know the performance of Modi government is historically well.
में हुआ कि कोई गृह मंत्री 4 दिन मणिपुर में स्वयं रहे हों, अलग अलग ग्रुप से बैठकें की हों, हर कदम उठाने का प्रयास किया हो, जहां एक और सारी जानकारी सदन को दी, वहीं पर एक शांति का प्रस्ताव भी रखा। लेकिन कांग्रेस ने शांति के प्रस्ताव पर भी सदन में भी अशांति फैलाने का प्रयास किया और मणिपुर में भी अशांति फैलाने में कोई कसर नहीं छोड़ रहे। श्रीमान राहुल गांधी जी का लॉन्च एक बार फिर फेल और फ्लॉप हो गया। जब वो सदन में कुछ नहीं बोल पाए तो सड़क पर आकर वही गाली दोबारा निकालने का प्रयास किया। अभद्र भाषा का प्रयोग, अपशब्द कहना, झूठ बोलना एक आदत सी कांग्रेस के नेताओं की बन गई है और ये इनका अहंकार और घमंड इनको घमंडिया गठबंधन को बनाता है। क्या कोई भारत माता का सपूत अपनी मां के टुकड़े टुकड़े की बात सोच सकता है? भारत माता की हत्या की बात सोच सकता है? ये वही सोच सकते हैं जो टुकड़े टुकड़े गैंग के समर्थक हों, मध्य रात्रि उनका समर्थन करते हों और बाद में टुकड़े टुकड़े गैंग को अपनी पार्टी में शामिल करवाते हों और अब उनको बड़ी बड़ी जिम्मेदारियां देते हों। मणिपुर और महिलाओं की इनको चिंता नहीं, मीडिया की सुर्खियों में बने रहना चिंता है। कितना खराब से खराब बोले ताकि मीडिया की सुर्खियों में बने रहे। श्रीमान राहुल गांधी जी भारत माता की मृत्यु की कामना करते हैं, इस तरह की बोलबानी। और यही नहीं, ये लोकतंत्र और संविधान की हत्या की बात। मैं तो कहूंगा इनके मन में जो है उनके कृत्य में भी नजर आता है। और कहीं ना कहीं वो शब्द जो है, जो भाषा है, वो साफ दिखाती हो चाहे देश के बाहर है या देश के अंदर है, देश को बदनाम करने वाली है। अगर श्रीमान राहुल गांधी जी आप सदन में तो 10 मिनट भी नहीं रहते, आप आए, भाषण दिया, आप चले गए। बांसवाड़ा तो आप चले गए लेकिन भीलवाड़ा नहीं गए। क्या वहां की बेटियों की हत्या, वहां की महिलाओं के साथ रेप होना, क्या आपको राजस्थान की महिलाओं की कोई चिंता नहीं? आप भेद मणिपुर में और राजस्थान में करते हैं, आप भेद मणिपुर में और बंगाल में करते हैं, आप भेद मणिपुर और बिहार की महिलाओं में करते हैं। और अगर मणिपुर की मैं बात करूं तो नफरत के बीज किसी ने बोए थे तो श्रीमान राहुल गांधी जी के परिवार ने, इनकी पार्टी ने बोए थे। पूरे नॉर्थ ईस्ट में जो आज जो नफरत देखने को मिलती है वो किसी और की दी हुई नहीं, नेहरू गांधी परिवार और कांग्रेस पार्टी की है। जब ये जवाब नहीं दे पाए सदन के अंदर कि कैसे अपने वोट बैंक की राजनीति के लिए नेहरू जी, इंदिरा जी, राजीव जी, फिर मनमोहन जी, सोनिया जी, राहुल गांधी जी, ये एक के बाद दूसरे ने पूर्वोत्तर को जलने के लिए छोड़ दिया। अरे श्रीमान राहुल गांधी जी, देश को जवाब दीजिए। 1962 में पंडित नेहरू जी ने तो असम को टाटा बाय बाय बोल दी थी। माई हार्ट गोज आउट टू असम, टू द पीपल ऑफ असम। आप तो उसी दिन छोड़ के बैठ गए थे। आपके लिए देश का कोई टुकड़ा चला जाए आपको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता। अक्षय चिन्ह का एरिया चलेगा, आपको तब भी कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ा। आप हिंदू चीनी भाई भाई करते रहे और अब भी जाकर आप राजीव गांधी फाउंडेशन में उसी चाइना से पैसा लेते हो और देश को जवाब नहीं देते हो। अब मैं 1966 की बात करता हूं। मिजोरम में किसने बम फेंकवाए थे, किसकी दादी थी? श्रीमान राहुल गांधी जी, जवाब दीजिए देश को। मिजोरम में बम फेंकवा के हजारों लोगों की हत्या किसने करवाई थी? क्या आप इंदिरा गांधी जी के निर्णयों को लेकर अभी नहीं बताओगे? जब आपसे आज मीडिया ने सवाल पूछा तो आप कन्नी काट के परली तरफ निकल गए। इतिहास गवाह है, यह मणिपुर में नफरत का बीज बोने वाली कांग्रेस पार्टी है। मिजोरम में 1966 में बम फेंकवाने वाली उस समय की कांग्रेस की सरकार और श्रीमती इंदिरा गांधी जी। और मैं अगर बात करूं 1997 की, तो 1 साल तक मणिपुर जलता रहा। किसकी सरकार थी, किसका समर्थन था? और यही नहीं, 2011 में राहुल जी आप तो तब सांसद थे, 2-2 हजार रुपए लीटर।
Well, that was Union Minister Anurag Thakur, and once again he was responding to the kind of charges that were made by Rahul Gandhi when he addressed the press today. Manipur continues to be the key issue that the opposition wants to focus on, and a response that we saw from Union Home Minister Amit Shah, a response from Prime Minister himself, and now the public discourse outside the Parliament. Let's take this question to our guests as well who are joining us on the broadcast. Anila Singh, the spokesperson of the BJP, with us on the broadcast, Sujata Paul from the Congress Party, Salim Dharanidharan from the DMK, and Mr. R. Rajgopalan, who's a senior journalist. Good evening to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Anila ji, we heard the Union Minister, we heard the speeches of Union Home Minister Amit Shah and the Prime Minister himself. The opposition continues to demand stringent action against what has happened in Manipur. And their key understanding is that whatever the government has done or even said on the floor of the House is not enough. And whataboutery on an issue like Manipur does not work. Anila ji.
My ram to all, and definitely when they talk about whataboutery shouldn't happen, but how can they say this thing that whatever happened in other states or what happened earlier shouldn't be mentioned in today's date? So people should also know what is happening in other states and what happened earlier. So both the government center and the state governments, they are totally involved in getting peace and harmony prevailed in Manipur. All the actions are being taken. That is why we see that the violence has been controlled. So number of deaths have also reduced. So people are trying to get back to their normal life. So the worry of the opposition that whether Manipur is going to be stabilized or not. So I have to convey one thing, and which the honorable ministers have also conveyed on the floor of the parliament, that yes, the situation in Manipur is under control, and in near future, everything will be fine. The only appeal is that the political parties who do not want that the situation should get normalized in Manipur, they should restrict their actions.
Anilaji, is that charge really something that you'd like to respond to? That it is actually some political parties like the Congress party which do not want normalcy in Manipur. Yesterday, I don't need to quote you the speech of the Prime Minister, I'm sure you heard, that how certain optics were used when Congress leader Rahul Gandhi visited Manipur, and it was quite deliberate for him, and Union Home Minister Amit Shah also mentioned about it, that it was deliberate on his part to stage certain antics or optics. How do you see that attack? Sujata ji.
First of all, I don't agree to this, and I take strict objection to the manner in which Manipur is burning, and you are saying that these were optics. Might I remind you that in 1966, let me finish, please.
Yeah, finish your point, yes.
Yes, thank you. In 1966, it was the Mizo National Front rebels that had taken over Aizawl, and that is the reason why the Indian Air Force, our brave forces, was sent to Mizoram. The Mizo National Front rebels ran for their lives, and we saved Mizoram. So when lies are being peddled, especially by ministers, they should be ashamed of themselves. When we talk about Manipur, Manipur is burning, and what did the naked king do? He stands exposed. He jeered, he laughed, he mocked, he made fun of the people of Manipur. He made fun of our sisters when he spoke for 2 hours, 13 minutes, and he gave a mere 3 to 4 minutes to the people of Manipur, to our sisters
Sujata
of Manipur.
Allow me an interjection here. How is it that the Prime Minister made fun of Manipur? Substantiate that argument if you're making that argument.
Absolutely, yeah. I will. In his speech of 2 hours, 13 minutes, if you noticed, he was attacking the opposition. That is his nature, that is his standard operating procedure, so that's perfectly fine. But yesterday was not the day for making fun of the opposition. At the moment the opposition, disgusted by his men and women cheering him on, clapping when we were talking about Manipur, we kept calling him out, kept asking him to speak on Manipur. He refused to speak, right? And when the opposition staged a walkout, he immediately came to Manipur. And if you notice his body language in that fraction of a second, he was taken aback. He didn't expect it.
No.
He wouldn't have taken the name
so,
of
Sujata
Manipur.
Ji, you're arguing, and correct me if I've understood it correctly, that the fact that the Prime Minister was taking pot shots at the opposition is an insult to Manipur. Is that a plausible argument you're making?
Absolutely, because when Manipur is burning, our sisters are getting raped. 2 communities have been seared, have a sword seared through them, and they cannot look at each other, they cannot stand each other, there is no communication between them. The Chief Minister has not been removed, the Prime Minister does not appeal for peace. That means he wants this to happen. And I've said this on your programs many times, Anusha, that he wants this violence to continue. Otherwise, he could have stopped it.
There's one pointed argument that you're making, that why the Chief Minister has not been removed, and I'll take it to the BJP as well. I want to clarify one point that you mentioned of the optics in the beginning. I was quoting merely BJP. I'm not in politics right now for me to say whether Rahul Gandhi or the Prime Minister was indulging into optics. That was the argument of the BJP, what was said on the floor of the House. My second point to you, which is rather a more substantial point. Many political commentators, responsible citizens and journalists like me who were watching the proceedings, we were happy with the fact that yes, Manipur is being taken up with full rigor enforced by the opposition parties, and yes, it's an issue that needs to be debated on the floor of the House. The Prime Minister is about to speak. Why didn't the opposition, including the Congress party, have the patience to listen to the full speech of the Prime Minister, then criticize it, call it out on its problems or the problems that he has not addressed, and then perhaps take a stand, walk out? Is that what this entire no confidence motion was all about?
Anusha, it would have been the best thing to happen. But if the Prime Minister spoke for 2 hours and 13 minutes and the opposition walked out after 1 hour 45 minutes, tell me why did they have to walk out? Because for this duration, the Prime Minister refused to speak about Manipur. He kept asking his men and women to cheer him, to jeer at the opposition when the issue was Manipur. If you remember when Mr. Gaurav Gogoi brought the proposition, what did he say? He moved the motion saying that there are 3 pointed questions that I'm asking you. Why did you not go to Manipur? He didn't answer that. He asked, why is it that you haven't appealed for peace? He didn't answer it. And he asked why Biren Singh has not been removed. These questions remain unanswered even now. And if the opposition hadn't moved out, he wouldn't have spoken at all.
All right. I think we've lost that line with Alna Singh. The moment she's back, I'll take her back into the discussion. Mr. Dharanidharan, coming to you and taking in a point from you, there were quite a few things that were said by the for the DMK by the BJP, and one of the things that BJP and the Prime Minister, including the Prime Minister, accuses the DMK of is the kind of narrative that the party has adopted, especially in various circumstances, especially when it comes to the integrity and sovereignty of India. Mr. Dharanidharan.
The only party and the only Prime Minister who is detrimental to the sovereignty of the country is Prime Minister Modi and the party BJP. This incumbent BJP government does not believe in democracy nor the parliament. This is the first time, or ever since Modi has come to power, BJP has come to power in 2014, they made mockery of democracy. This is the first time in the history of independent India, there have been 30 no confidence motion. The first time a no confidence motion is happening for the PM to speak. Because he wanted him to speak on Manipur. 55,000 people were homeless, right? No sanitary napkins. Women were paraded naked. And the Chief Minister of Manipur has audacity to say, no, 50 such incidents have happened. And then still the Chief Minister has not changed. What did the BJP call the learned ex-Prime Minister Manmohan Singh? As Manmohan Singh. But look at who is really Maun. Modi is a person who's really mourned.
But didn't he speak for 2 hours yesterday? Wasn't there a detailed response that came from the Union Home Minister? No, the only thing, sir...
No, don't interrupt. You're interrupting me. Prime Minister Modi has spoken on 7 debates in the last 9 years, and Manmohan Singh has spoken on nearly 70 debates in 10 years, which is 10 times higher.
Why
can't you participate in debates in the parliament? You in parliament?
Sir, I wish I
You are
did.
interrupting
One
me.
second. Sir, when you said don't interrupt, I stopped. I'm not here to interrupt you. You are a panelist here. I want you to speak on the debate. My question to you was rather different. My question to you was that why has it become about the optics of who is giving response on the floor of the House? Didn't the Union Home Minister give a detailed statement on the floor of the House when it comes to the Chief Minister, when it comes to the situation in Manipur? What has the Union government done and much more? Why is it that the opposition is hell-bent that Prime Minister should make an address and it should be an hour-long address on Manipur?
Because it's an extraordinary situation. The world has taken notice of it. It's like a genocide that's happening there. And if Prime Minister does not want to speak and Home Minister wants to speak, then let's the Home Minister.
I believe that word genocide should be used very, very cautiously and carefully. And we are all very worried about the situation in Manipur.
Genocide-like situation.
All right, I take that correction. Anurag, I'm coming back to you. One question that the political opponents rightly continue to ask is that why is it that the Chief Minister has not been replaced so far? If the government is serious upon acting on the situation, then Chief Minister, which does not seem to have the confidence of one particular community, which is part of that conflict, why don't you take action against the Chief Minister? Anilaji, am I audible to you? Can you hear me? We'll try and fix that line. There's a lot of disturbance which is coming in. Mr. Rajgopalan, coming to you. I'm sure you heard a lot of points that were made by Mr. Dharanidharan and also by the Congress party. Sujata ji is also with us on the broadcast. And they argue that substantial questions pertaining to Manipur have not been answered. These were speeches that we saw on floor of the House which were high on optics and political noise but low on substance.
The opposition parties have every right to demand a no confidence and Prime Minister should come and address.
Yes.
They stalled the parliament for 10 days. Day before yesterday evening, Anusha, there was a resolution in Lok Sabha that peace should prevail and whatever the assurance center which will give extent. Congress and DMK and other parties were party to that resolution. All party resolution spoken and moved by the Speaker of Lok Sabha. It's a unanimous resolution. Day before yesterday night it took place. And after Mr. Amit Shah gave an exhaustive reply, and he gave, immense 18 to 19 points. I was present. Out of our 4 panelists, I was the only one panelist in the debate today, present in the Lok Sabha during Amit Shah's reply.
Yeah.
And he gave exhaustive reply, and all the parties accepted that reply, including Congress, including Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary. Then Prime Minister came. You can't dictate Prime Minister should speak to Manipur, because there was no mention of Manipur in the motion, or it's only no confidence against the government. So the government was having confidence. Therefore, I did not disturb, sir. I did not disturb anyone. Please allow me to speak.
So nobody is disturbing you. You make your point, then I'll go to the Congress and the DMK. You finish your point, sir.
Prime Minister spoke exhaustively. He articulated in 3 points. One, politics. Then he spent more amount on time on Manipur. And he also said, Manipur, we will ensure that peace returns. Internet has been restored in Manipur. Peaceful returning to Manipur. And apart from that, should Congress walk out? Should DMK walk out? After Prime Minister heckled them, they should return when he started to speak Manipur.
All right. So you've made your point, sir. You've made your point, sir. Sujata,
opposition should not have walked out. Opposition should not have walked out.
I take that point. Sujata ji, please go ahead.
Yes, the fact is that this was a political speech. There is no doubt about it. What the gentleman is saying is absolutely correct. But he said that he will ensure that peace returns. He's not asking for peace to be established. He's not appealing for the 2 communities to establish peace. He's not ensuring that the 2 communities talk to each other. What kind of peace is he talking about? Like the one in Nu, where people are being driven out, one community is being thrown out. That's exactly.
Mr. Rajgopal, one at a time. Congress party, right?
Don't you dare.
All right. Let's maintain the decorum of the debate. Let's maintain the decorum of the debate. Sujata Paul. Sujata Paul. Yes.
Yeah. So, he said, we will ensure that peace returns. This is not appealing for peace. And what kind of peace is it? This is what we are saying, that this is ethnic cleansing. One community is being wiped out. They are being, and there, I have information that a whole lot of people from the community have left Manipur, gone to Nagaland. Similarly, from Mizoram, the Metis have left Mizoram and they are moving towards Manipur. What is happening? You have this of Manipur. There are many communities over there, even the Nagas, they all have had problems in the past, but they are there and they have stayed over there, but this is the first time that they are moving away.
This is not whataboutery, but put this into context. It's unfortunate, but it's a reality. It was pointed out by the Union Home Minister as well, and I'm reiterating that point. You can counter that if you disagree. That unfortunately, there is a history to violence between communities in the northeastern region, and it is not as if it is happening for the first time. It's unfortunate that it has happened earlier in other northeastern states as well. And in fact, somewhere the political onus and responsibility of why it continues to simmer lies with the people or the parties who were ruling the state earlier. That was said by the BJP. Respond to that point. Yes.
I thank you for asking me this question, because the fact is,
I'll come after the NDA,
after Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee's NDA went out of power, what we inherited was chaos in the northeast. And what happened was that in Manipur also things were not okay. But if you remember that after the, can you keep quiet?
One second. Can we please mute the audio of Mr. Rajgopalan, and can we please have Sujata Paul, please? Sujata ji, there was a different error of kinds. Please go ahead. Yes.
No problem. Yeah. All right. So what I'm saying is that when we inherited the problems of Manipur from the NDA government, we didn't push the responsibility on the NDA government, if you remember. The Manorama incident happened in August 2004. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh went to Manipur, ensured people that AFSPA would be removed from various places gradually, and that process has continued. So our 10 years, there were no problems. How is it that their 9.5 years, and when there is a so-called double disaster government over there, their double engine government, how is it that this problem has started now? How come Arambai, Tengol and Meti Lipu came into...
The unfortunate bit is that if I dig into history or if I cite precedents, it will become political whataboutery, and that's exactly something I don't want to do on Manipur. I quickly want to bring in a point from the DMK, then I'll bring in Anila Singh of the BJP. She is back with us on the broadcast. Mr. Dharanidharan, a quick point from you, please.
See, if you compare the violence that has happened in Manipur from 2004 to 2014, 3 or 4 sporadic incidences about 20 people killed, but look, compare it from 2014 to 2023. This violence alone about 200 people, and then earlier about 40 people, and so the entire mismanagement has to go with the BJP government. What was the intelligence and CBI, and RAW doing? And also, why wasn't the chief minister changed, and why is he still not changed? Why is there no emergency? The inaction is the problem. It took 4 months for the chief prime minister to speak on the issue. It took 3 months for video of women being tortured, made to parade in the streets to come out. So that is the problem. How the BJP handled. Let's not go into history. And also, I want to make one more important point. That is the first time in history of independent India that bills have been passed when no confidence motion has been called, and also bills were not given time to be discussed. There were always changes in the business of the House.
While today there were crucial GST amendment bill, and there was also the 3 crucial bills pertaining to CRPC and IPC being referred to the standing committee. The opposition was out there
these
protesting.
Bills do not even have a name in English for the first time.
No.
They were all
that's a separate matter for debate, sir. I would welcome that debate at some other point. That's a good point that you're making. Anilaj, a quick point from you. Why did it take so long for the union government to admit that there is a problem which is brewing in the northeastern state, and you still continue to defend a chief minister which many are demanding must step down?
Not whole of the northeast is disturbed, but definitely in today's date, yes, Manipur is really disturbed, and this is what Honorable Home Minister also conveyed, that NDA government is there in Manipur since 6 years. There never ever was curfew. Situation was normal, and AFSA was also removed. And this a verdict came out, and immediately a violence erupted. And the worst part was the political parties like Congress, they didn't try to calm the situation down. They encouraged the perpetrators to come out and do more violence. So the reality is that Manipur is also going to be calm in near future. But the real face of political parties like Congress is out, and we all know that they are.
I'll just come back to you, Mr. Rajgopalan. Do you find merit in this argument that it took too long for the union government to admit and to take the responsibility that situation in Manipur is very tense? And more importantly, why do you see the BJP still backing the chief minister, Mr. Rajgopalan?
It's a political issue. It's a political issue whether to change the chief minister or not. It is left to the BJP High Command. And, we cannot force BJP to do a change of chief minister. There are ministers who are arrested, and the chief minister is still protecting them in some states. So therefore, my understanding is it is for the BJP to take a call. Second thing, day before yesterday, Mr. Amit Shah spoke very well on this Myanmar, where the army regime came in Myanmar in 2022. There are leftovers from Keki community from Myanmar to India. So therefore, that started. He gave the root cause of it. What else you want? You can't change the goalposts, Soni, madam.
No, but Mr. Rajgopalan, one of the key arguments, and I find it some legal weightage as well, that had it been any other opposition rule state, a precedent rule would have been imposed. That has not been done in Manipur.
It is not a border state. If they want to put 356, and some party suggests army to go there. The day before yesterday, Amit Shah said this is not no place for army. We don't want to use AFSA. He mentioned that. What else you want? You have to get educated for, they understand what Amit Shah articulated that day. Opposition was determined to walk out, they walked out because they don't have any answer to reply to the government. Whatever Rahul Gandhi is speaking today in press conference, Rahul Gandhi should have spoken in the...
One at a time. Mr. Rajgopalan right now, then I'll go to DMK and the Congress. Mr. Rajgopalan, yes.
Rahul Gandhi should have spoken in Parliament after Prime Minister spoke. It is only theatrics because government articulated very well, madam. Prime Minister said Amit Shah has spoken for 2 full hours and he extended it further. And he also said peace should return. You can't dictate terms to a government which is in a crisis mode, sensitive mode.
All right.
Apart from that, even in the all-party meeting, the Congress, Gaurav Gogoi attended that all-party meeting and he appreciated the government stand. Now the Congress, or internal Congress is divided. Entire opposition is divided. That is why this crisis.
All right. A quick response from Sujata Paul and DM
Yes.
Mr. Dharanidharan. Yes.
The BJP spokesperson just said that the Northeast is disturbed. Is she trying to say that entire Northeast is disturbed even now? AFSPA has still not been removed from all places. It has been removed from certain police stations. And this is how the BJP protects it, that it has been removed from everywhere except 9 districts in Assam and so on. But what are the weapons doing with the public right now? The weapons haven't been brought back to the treasury. The Congress, how is the Congress responsible for maintaining law and order over there at the moment when you are in power? And like I said, we did not blame the NDA government for the problems we inherited. And like the DMK spokesperson has, there were sporadic incidents, but we brought them under control. ADGP Clay Kongsai's house was burnt down. How do you expect things to become not just a political issue? The chief minister of other states can be removed, but the chief minister over here cannot be removed. What kind of argument is that? Whenever we have been held accountable, if you remember in Uttarakhand when the 2013 disaster happened, it was the opposition which asked for Vijay Bahuguna to be removed as chief minister, and we did that. Yes.
Mr. Dharanidharan, a quick point from you as I wrap this debate, please.
See, the Prime Minister has been doing a lot of political rallies and was never speaking in the Parliament, so he forgot how to speak in the Parliament. And the parliamentary speech yesterday was 99% was more like a political, addressing a political rally, and with no substance and no data, it's all lies. Right? That is the problem. He said BJP is the party which does not do corruption, but the only party that made corruption official in the world is BJP by bringing electoral bonds, where corporate companies and anyone can donate
Manipur.
money
Let's
they want, and
talk
only
about
BJP will know, no one will not know. And then he said, no, BJP.
Kachedev, what is answer for Kachedev? You tell me about
BJP has the
Kachedev.
highest number of dynasties. Prime Minister Modi said
As I focus on the issue of Manipur and what has dominated, indeed the situation, as the Home Minister highlighted, is a very worrying situation. There must be a constructive debate and political accountability that must be sought on the floor of the House and outside in political discourse. As I end this debate, thank you Anla Singh, Sujata Paul, Salim Dharanidharan and Mr. Rajgopalan for joining us on the broadcast. And in the days to come, we hope that the violence in the state of Manipur only comes down and the peace and normalcy is restored. We're slipping into a very short break, but up next, the Centre proposes a major revamp to the criminal laws, rejigging various provisions of the Indian Penal Code, Indian Evidence Act, and also the Criminal Procedure Code. After independence, if approved by a select committee and eventually the Parliament, this will be the biggest reform of the legal system that we witness.
खड़ा करने की जरूरत है। अपराध रोकने के लिए एक प्रकार की भावना खड़ी करने की जरूरत है, वही होगा। और मैं ये तीनों कानूनों को आगे मैं बताता हूं, या उससे आनुषंगिक विषयों को उत्पन्न करने के लिए विधेयक को पुरस्तापित करने की अनुमति दी जाए।
प्रश्न है कि विधेयक को पुरस्तावित करने की अनुमति प्रदान की जाए। जो सदस्य इसके पक्ष में हाँ कहें, जो सदस्य विरोध ना कहें। मेरे विचार में निर्णय हाँ वालों के पक्ष में, हाँ वालों के पक्ष में। माननीय मंत्री जी विधेयक, माननीय मंत्री जी कुछ कहना चाहते हैं इस पे?
हाँ, सभापति महोदय, माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, सबसे पहले तो आज 18 साल की उम्र में देश के लिए बलिदान देने वाले महान क्रांतिकारी खुदीराम बोस की पुण्यतिथि है। मैं पूरे सदन के सामने शीश झुकाकर उनको नमन करना चाहता हूं और उनकी स्मृति से प्रेरित होकर युगों युगों के लिए जो युवा देश के लिए काम करेंगे, वो सब के लिए महान क्रांतिकारी खुदीराम बोस जी का जीवन प्रेरणा के स्रोत हमेशा के लिए रहेगा, इसका मुझे विश्वास है। माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, आज का ऐतिहासिक दिवस है। आज के ही दिन दादरा नगर हवेली का भारतीय संघ में विलय हुआ था और भारतीय संघ एक प्रकार से संपूर्ण राष्ट्र बना था। माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, आज जब मैं ये 3 विधेयक लेकर आया हूं, उस वक्त आज़ादी के अमृत महोत्सव का समापन हो रहा है और आज़ादी के अमृत काल की शुरुआत होने का समय है। 15 अगस्त से आज़ादी का अमृत महोत्सव समाप्त होगा और 16 अगस्त से आज़ादी की 75 साल से 100 साल की यात्रा की शुरुआत होगी, जो निश्चित रूप से महान भारत की रचना करेगी। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने इस देश के सामने गत 15 अगस्त को लाल किले की प्राचीर से अपना उद्बोधन देते हुए 5 प्रणों को देश की जनता के सामने रखा था। माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, ये 5 प्रण में से एक प्रण था कि हम गुलामी की सभी निशानियों को हम समाप्त कर देंगे, हमारे मन से वो बोझ को दूर करेंगे। माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, आज मैं जो 3 विधेयक एक साथ लेकर आया हूं, वो तीनों विधेयक एक प्रकार से मोदी जी ने जो 5 प्रण लिए हैं उसमें से एक प्रण की अनुपालना करने वाले हैं। माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, ये तीनों विधेयक दंड विधान प्रक्रिया, क्रिमिनल जस्टिस सिस्टम को बेसिक कानून, इसके लिए मूलभूत कानून ये 3 विधेयकों के अंदर है। एक है इंडियन पिनल कोड जो 1860 में बनाया गया, दूसरा है क्रिमिनल प्रोसीजर कोड जो 1898 में बनाया गया और तीसरा है इंडियन एविडेंस एक्ट जो 1872 में बनाया गया। 1860, 1898 और 1872 में अंग्रेजों द्वारा बनाए गए, अंग्रेजों की संसद के द्वारा पारित किए गए ये तीनों कानूनों को समाप्त कर आज हम तीनों नए कानून पुरस्कृत करने के लिए मैं आया हूं। माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, इंडियन पिनल कोड 1860 की जगह भारतीय न्याय संहिता 2023 अब एस्टैब्लिश होगी। क्रिमिनल प्रोसीजर कोड 1898 की जगह भारतीय नागरिक सुरक्षा संहिता प्रस्तावित होगी और इंडियन एविडेंस एक्ट 1872 की जगह भारतीय साक्ष्य अधिनियम 2023 प्रस्तावित होगा। यह कानूनों की जो कानून रिपील होंगे इस तीनों विधेयक से, वो कानूनों की आत्मा जो है, वो कानूनों का मध्य बिंदु है कानून बनाने का, वो अंग्रेज शासन को मजबूत करने की दृष्टि से कानून बनाए गए थे। अंग्रेज शासन की रक्षा करने के लिए कानून बनाए गए थे और उसका उद्देश्य दंड देने का था, न्याय देने का नहीं था। ये दोनों मूलभूत चीजों पर हम परिवर्तन करने जा रहे हैं। ये तीनों कानूनों को रिप्लेस कर इनकी जगह जो 3 नए कानून बनेंगे उनकी आत्मा होगी भारत के नागरिकों को संविधान प्रदत्त सारे अधिकार जो मिले हैं इसकी सुरक्षा। ये कानूनों का उद्देश्य किसी को दंड देना नहीं होगा, इन कानूनों का उद्देश्य सबको न्याय देना होगा और न्याय देने की प्रक्रिया में, ये न्याय देने की प्रक्रिया में दंड वही होगा जहां अपराध रोकने का बोध खड़ा करने की जरूरत है। अपराध रोकने के लिए एक प्रकार की भावना खड़ी करने की जरूरत है, वही होगा। और मैं ये तीनों कानूनों को आगे मैं बताता हूं या उससे आनुषंगिक विषयों को उत्पन्न करने के लिए विधेयक को पुरस्कृत करने की अनुमति दी जाए।
प्रश्न है कि विधेयक को पुरस्कृत करने की अनुमति प्रदान की जाए। जो सदस्य इसके पक्ष में हाँ कहें, जो सदस्य विरोध ना कहें। मेरे विचार में निर्णय हाँ वालों के पक्ष में, हाँ वालों के पक्ष में। माननीय मंत्री जी विधेयक, माननीय मंत्री जी कुछ कहना चाहते हैं इस पे?
हाँ। सभापति महोदय, माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, सबसे पहले तो आज 18 साल की उम्र में देश के लिए बलिदान देने वाले महान क्रांतिकारी खुदीराम बोस की पुण्यतिथि है। मैं पूरे सदन के सामने शीश झुकाकर उनको नमन करना चाहता हूं और उनकी स्मृति से प्रेरित होकर युगों युगों के लिए जो युवा देश के लिए काम करेंगे वो सब के लिए महान क्रांतिकारी खुदीराम बोस जी का जीवन प्रेरणा के स्रोत हमेशा के लिए रहेगा, इसका मुझे विश्वास है। माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, आज का ऐतिहासिक दिवस है।
Welcome back, and now on to another big story of the day. There were 3 historic bills that were proposed today by the union government, which seek to change and overhaul how the criminal justice system here in India functions. This is largely about the codification and the recodification of the Criminal Procedure Code, Indian Evidence Act and the Indian Penal Code. The argument of the government is the manner in which the codification of Indian laws has happened has a huge colonial baggage. It must be done away with. Not just the optical change or 302 being shifted to being some other provision of the constitution, there are real substantial changes that have been proposed by the government. Many would argue these are progressive changes that should have been brought in. For instance, whenever an offence of rape is committed on a girl below the age of 12, the punishment can be death. Now, this is something that we have never seen before under the Indian Penal Code. Offence of mob lynching, which was a demand of the opposition parties and various civic rights groups, has been introduced. This was also the suggestion of the Supreme Court of India. And most importantly, and the much talked about, 124A, disaffection against the state, sedition. The offence of sedition will be done away with. It's already in abeyance by the Supreme Court of India, but the fact that it exists on the statute book and is yet to be officially repealed is a proposal that the government is making on the floor of the House. All these 3 crucial bills have been referred to a select committee now, which will take a view on this matter. But if implemented, eventually passed by the Parliament and given an assent by the President, this is the biggest sweeping reform and changes that we will witness in the history of independence India. And more importantly, the manner in which our judiciary functions, the Indian Penal Code functions, and how trials happen in this country, all of that will be changed for good. Our focus on Viewpoint.
तीनों कानूनों में गुलामियों की निशानी से भरे हुए कानून, राजद्रोह को कंप्लीटली हम रिपील कर रहे हैं, कंप्लीटली रिपील। यहां लोकतंत्र, सबको बोलने का अधिकार, राजद्रोह को हम कंप्लीटली रिपील कर रहे हैं। मान्यवर, सबसे पहला चैप्टर इसमें आएगा महिलाओं और बालकों के साथ अपराध।
Let's break it down for you. What are the key differences that exist? 124A, the offence of sedition, and the new chapter 7 that has been introduced by the government, the proposed chapter under the Indian Penal Code. Is it only a change of name that you're not calling it sedition and you're now calling it offence against the state? I argue otherwise. One of the key things under the old sedition law was the manner in which it was worded. There were words like feelings of disaffection, hatred or contempt. These are vague, arbitrary words which the Supreme Court argued are open to misuse and should be done away with. Under the new law, there is a thorough codification process which has been proposed by the union government. This is about attempting to wage war and also organizing some kind of rebellion against the state that's going to be penalized. Under this, there are clear heads and sections that have been put out. As I said earlier, there was no clear definition of what the offence against the state was, and hence a cartoon could be an offence against the state. A stand-up comic can be persecuted for sedition. That won't happen anymore. Conspiracy and use of criminal force against the government. Clearly, in the provisions which have been proposed, it is clear if you read those provisions, there has to be a tangible use of force. There has to be some activity that has been done. A mere thought, disagreement, dissent cannot be covered under the proposed law. That's what the argument here is. Section was termed as vague and arbitrary by Supreme Court. It wasn't a judgment per se, but these were oral observations. And under these observations, the law was put in abeyance by the Supreme Court of India with the assurance from Solicitor General that the government is going to relook at these laws. Now, attempt to excite armed rebellion, fueling separatism or separatist tendencies, more importantly, organizing any kind of financial means, using weapons against the state, trying to disrupt the office of the governor or the president who are responsible for the internal security of the country. All of those offences are covered under the proposed law. As I said, the old sedition law is open and prone to misuse due to the colonial language. It was something that the British Raj had imposed to protect themselves against the revolutionaries or the freedom fighters of this country. Hence the word disaffection, contempt or hatred. While you can have feelings of disaffection or hatred for a particular government or a political party, and you can still be a thriving citizen of this country. That's the spirit of democracy that the new law is trying to preserve and reflect in the new changes that have been brought in. Activities against the president and the governor's office. Now, this becomes important because these are heads of the country and the state, respectively. Let's move on and also talk about the key changes that have been brought in and what exactly this review is going to be about. Safety of women. One of the things that the Union Home Minister said is that, look, 302 or 375 and 376, they are so far away in the Penal Code and provision, and that is because for the British Raj, the safety and security of women was not really the prime concern. If the overhaul of the Indian Penal Code really happens, there is a death penalty for the rape of minors below 12. We don't have a death penalty for rape in this country. Death penalty exists for rape and murder. But for rape per se, this is being introduced. Minimum 20 years of life imprisonment for gang rape. They are trying to make it more stringent in terms of sentencing. As far as the substantive law in this country is concerned, it's already very good. 2013 Criminal Amendment, post-Nirbhaya, that was already done. What is it that these changes will do? What is the net effect? What is the impact? The government criticism cannot be dubbed as sedition. Just because somebody disagrees with the government and administrative action or something has been said which the government dislikes or people in power dislike, that's not sedition. That is one thing that the law must take care of. There are also safeguards to prevent the misuse of the sedition law that was earlier there. And how is that done? If there is an exhaustive codification of what attempt of waging a war against the state that has been laid out verbatim, that makes sure that it is not prone to misuse. There are exhaustive definitions to cure defects of vagueness. How is a law misused? All laws can be misused, but the laws which are bad per se are whose language is vague and arbitrary and does not define the malice it's trying to target. In this case, the exhaustive definition try to deal with the menace of what was the problem under, say for example, under sedition. Let's take this question to our guest as well. Mr. Sulaiman Mohammed Khan, who's a spokesperson of the Congress party, is joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Kapil Sankla, who's a lawyer, is also with us on the show. Kailash Vasudev, who's a senior advocate at the Supreme Court, is also joining us on the broadcast. Kapilji, I'll come to you first. What are your thoughts on these overarching changes that have been proposed by the union government?
I think it's a historical day today for any lawyer, any person who's in any form associated with the criminal law system. There are three major changes that have been done. They've been done under to the IPC, the Indian Penal Code, the CRPC, which takes care of the procedure on how investigations would take place and how the courts will proceed, and the Indian Evidence Act, where how the evidences would be looked into by the court and collected by the investigating officer is looked into. So not just sedition, but you see there is a substantial overhaul in the entire judicial process as far as criminal law is concerned. You now permit service of summons through internet and WhatsApp, etc. You now permit service through WhatsApp and internet, etc. You allow an accused to be present online rather than physical appearance mandated in every occasion. You also permit the prosecution to go ahead with the trial even if the accused is not there. Because what would happen is that the accused, especially when it comes to heinous offences, etc.,
Right.
or where criminals, peshevar criminals, what would happen is that they would vanish and the entire trial would come to a standstill. Or when there are multiple parties, one of the accused would vanish, making sure that the trial is stuck for next 3, 4, 5 years. So those are substantial changes that I see. As
Right.
far as the Evidence Act is concerned also,
Yeah.
it's very important to note that recording is actually now allowed. And also recording of the procedure of the court is also now allowed, because this is now virtual. So therefore now there is a lot of responsibility on every stakeholder in any criminal prosecution system. So the stakeholders, who are the stakeholders? We as lawyers are stakeholders. We are responsible because our conduct is getting recorded.
No,
For posterity.
on a lighter note, and Twitter is full of memes like that. I'll bring in Mr. Kailash Vasudev also on that. I mean, we'd all have to mug up the Indian Penal Code yet again. Many people are arguing that good, you're making these substantial changes, but why do you want to overhaul everything? The entire jurisprudence, Supreme Court judgments, how the police and the courts and the trial courts and the magistrates and a local policeman on the street knows law, is because everybody knows what 302 is about, what 420 is about. If you overhaul everything, the common layman understanding of what law really is will go for a complete toss. Already the legal awareness in this country is already very, very low. Mr. Sangla, Kapil.
Right. So the short answer is this. This was coming. It's been delayed for decades. Our laws are so old that you will be surprised to know that the Britishers who gave us that law actually gave up that law in Britain. There is no Sedition Act there. There are no sedition laws there. Now, you said something very importantly, that it is the vagueness of the law that creates discontent, disharmony and misuse.
Yes.
And it is high time that we bring in better laws, more specific laws, more pointed laws.
Yes.
Because you would otherwise let the police wala do whatever he wants to do. So that was a really good beginning. I like that. And that is why these laws need to be overhauled today.
All right, Mr. Kailash Vasudev, before I take in a word from Mr. Sulaiman Mohammed as well, who's patiently listening to this discussion, much has been talked about the law of sedition, 124A. It must go away from the statute books. I think the Supreme Court said it, the law is in abeyance, it had to happen. But there is a different chapter, chapter 7, if I'm correct, that has been proposed that should replace, the offense of sedition. And this chapter talks about the offenses against the state, waging or attempting wage a war against the country, conspiracy to commit offenses punishable by 145, concealing with intent to facilitate or design a wage war. Do you think that this is the right approach that has been taken by the union government, doing away with that vague section and further exhaustively trying to codify this?
Good evening.
Good evening.
In the first instance, the sedition provisions should have been removed long back. Because we had parallel proceedings which are available, the Defence of India Act, the Defence of India rules. All these were available for those who were acting against the interest of the state. You are now amending it and slipping it in a different direction. You are bringing in sedition under different heads in a different in a different chapter totally.
Okay.
But where do you say that these provisions are going to be honestly followed without causing any embarrassment to anybody? Laws always exist. Laws will always exist and laws will always change. That's the Grundnorm of society.
Yes, sir.
It is, how do you implement them? Do you use the same stick? Do you use the same provisions for purposes of intimidating somebody? See, I say this because in the past 20 years, we have been seeking to overhaul the law. We have made huge changes in the law. You had as many as 30 constitutional amendments. You have brought in all sorts of changes, right from Aadhaar down to sedition, down to individual rights, down to reservation. You know, we are a melting pot of democracy. But in this melting pot of democracy, what we have to ensure is that the citizen is not intimidated by governmental action. If you are going to remove sedition and bring in other provisions, then please make sure that policing is also tested. One very salient fact which is now taking place is that the number of convictions are dropping by the day.
Yes.
So what happens is Mr. X has been arrested for a charge in 2020. His trial finishes in 2035. That was going up to the Supreme Court. So 15 years this man has been in custody. His best years of his life are destroyed.
No, you're,
So
you're right. You're right. The process becomes the punishment. And
now,
this was, yes, finish your point.
it is here that we have a suggestion which we see from courts in our daily practice.
Yeah.
If there is an acquittal based on a charge, the I or the investigating officer who filed that case, the investigating process which took place must be tested. May not be by the court, but by the police itself. Because at the end of the day, the person who has been arrested, tried and acquitted, you've destroyed him. You may not have destroyed him through the
No, that's a fair point you're making, and in fact, you touch upon a very progressive and a raw nerve, because in our country, I always argue that it's the process that's the punishment. Whether you get a conviction or you get an acquittal, if you're involved in that process, your life goes for a toss. Mr. Sulaiman Mohammed Khan, do you think that the government has brought in these changes with the right intent? These are sweeping reforms and changes which are suggested. In my understanding as a student of law, they go well beyond a Congress or a BJP or any other opposition parties. If these reforms come in, all political parties need to be on the board. What is your understanding, sir?
No, first of all, Anusha, these laws have been sent to the parliamentary panel.
Yes.
And that will be, scrutinized there. And the final picture will only be revealed post the scrutiny by the panel. Honestly speaking, I have not read I think nobody could have read each and every section of all the three laws.
Sure.
So we have not, but we are just discussing, few points which are being highlighted in the media, told by you otherwise.
Sure.
Yeah. This government, I don't want to say this because the final law will come finally, but anything this government do, they make an event of it. Now, there were 2-3 important points which the Honorable Home Minister said in the floor of the House. The first one, it is a British era laws and we just want to shed this British impact on our laws. Second, he said that sedition is repealed. And third, he said, which is I think a welcome thing, that the crime of mob lynching is now being punished, which otherwise also could have been, done. The first argument that this British era, there are few sections which Mr. Vasudev and you also said, and Mr. Sankla also said, that the sedition law, section 124A, which has been repealed and which has been now being celebrated. I completely agree with Mr. Vasudev that it should have been repealed far back. I think in 1947, when we became independent, should have been repealed at that time only. We all agree on that.
Yeah.
But this government has not done something extraordinary. I am just seeing a report by one of the newspaper, The Wire, which has published it that in past 7-8 years, 95% of time, sedition has been used by this government. For past 10 years. In past 10 years, 95% of the cases have been...
Sir, look, I am not somebody with political affiliations, but I am a student of legal history in this country, and I can remind you of many cases where the Congress party has used sedition. Sedition is a tool that every political party in this country has used for their own political purposes each time when they're in power. The only reason that there is some kind of check on the law of sedition is because of the courts of this country. Mr. Kapil Sankla,
I have not completed, madam. You cut me short.
I'm sorry. Please finish your point.
Further.
Please finish your point.
Because I was, a bit saying something which was against the government. You should not cut me short.
No, I'm not cutting you short, sir. Please finish your point. Please finish your point, sir.
I am not saying. I am saying since 47. From 1947, for how many years Congress was there? 55 years. In past 78 years or 76 years.
That's right.
So I am agreeing to that. We all agree that it has been misused by all the parties, including the Congress. I am just giving you a data by a newspaper saying that in past 10 years, 95% of sedition cases have been, put by this BJP government, which is celebrating today in the parliament.
No, and because you thought I was interrupting you because you were making an anti-government point. Can I add one point to what you're saying?
One last point.
Yes.
One last point I want to make.
Yes.
This has been repealed, as Mr. Kailash Vasudevji said. In this matter, Supreme Court has put it in abeyance and shows its intent that it cannot remain. And why this journalist? It has been, filed against a journalist by the name of Kishore Chandra Khemka in Imphal, who has criticized Narendra Modi ji, RSS and N. Biren Singh, the Chief Minister. an FIR of sedition was filed against the same against the same journalist Kishore Chand, who approached the Supreme Court. Supreme Court put this sedition law in abeyance or stayed it.
And I was coming to the same point, sir, Mr. Sulaiman Mohammed. I was coming to the same point that a sedition law right now has not been repealed by the government. The government has proposed to do away with this provision once the new laws come into force. The fact that sedition, the fact that sedition is not operative in this country is, sir, listen to my point. Listen to my point, what I'm saying.
There is no one from the BJP.
Oh my God. Sir, you're not even listening to my point. I'm saying, I am arguing. You have to listen to my point, sir, before calling me something. I take huge objection to that. I am arguing that the reason why sedition law has been put in abeyance. Oh my God, Mr. Sulaiman, will you listen to my point and then call me something? No, you have to listen to my point. No, you have to listen to my point. No, you have to listen to my point. I have given you uninterrupted time. No, this is not the way. No, this is not the way to behave, sir. Sir, this is not the way. This is not the way to behave. I am making a point. You don't even want to listen. All you're saying is BJP spokesperson.
Please let me complete. Why do you interject? What is the problem?
You have spoken non-stop for the last 4 to 5 minutes, sir. You've spoken non-stop.
Madam,
nobody was given that time.
You are in a discomfort because I was criticizing the government. Say it on the face.
Will you listen to my point? Will you listen to my point and then come on it to merit? The point I was trying to make it that the sedition law is in abeyance not because of the BJP but because of the Supreme Court of India. The Supreme Court of India has put the law in abeyance, not the BJP. Now does that make me a BJP spokesperson, sir? And was that a responsible comment for you to make?
You stopped me twice.
So that means you'll call me something. Not taken in the right spirit. Not taken in the right spirit. Mr. Kapil Sankla, as I wrap the debate, is it right to overhaul the system? Is it right to overhaul the system, the manner in which it is being proposed? A lot of lawyers argue, and many in the legal fraternity argue, that yes, there are changes which are needed to shed the colonial baggage, but perhaps an overhaul of this scale, we are not ready for it. Do you buy that argument?
I don't buy that at all, and I'll tell you why. Because post-lockdown, I did not think that the courts could operate online, but we did. I did not see when the courts operated online, we criminal lawyers were laughing. We were saying that how would service take place? Till the courts came to our aid and said, all right, you can serve through WhatsApp. They made the police officers scan everything and then came out with a process where all the scanned documents are OCR'd, bookmarked and then supplied to everybody.
Yeah.
Now, if we can do that in these 2 years of lockdown, I really don't see why we are dumping down our people. We are very smart. We are very resourceful. And I'm very happy today. And you see, a lawyer with 25, 30, 40 years standing has a lot of difficulty. You know, old dog learning to learn new tricks. I'll have to go through the 3 acts and learn them again.
Sir, there was a joke on social media that all your bear statutes have been demonetized. If this comes into force, you'll have to do away with all of them. But it's a fascinating change that we're talking about in this country. I thank all my guests for joining us on the broadcast, Mr. Kapil Sankla, Mr. Kailash Vasudev and Mr. Sulaiman Mohammed Khan. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the show. We cut across to some latest news which is coming in. Now, the Election Commission of India has published a final delimitation order for Assembly and Parliamentary constituencies of state of Assam after extensive consultations with the stakeholders. In the final order, the Election Commission of India has revised existing nomenclature of 19 ACs and 01 PC number of Assembly seats, retained at 126 and Lok Sabha seats and 19 Assembly constituencies and 2 Parliamentary constituencies. Well, delimitation is an exercise which is statutorily mandated and something that has been pending in the country. Pertaining to that, these are crucial things that have been put out by the Election Commission of India. Now, the Election Commission of India has done extensive consultations with the various stakeholders. This is the final delimitation order for Assembly and Parliamentary constituencies of state. What are these constituencies? These are the states of Assam. Now, more importantly, after extensive consultations with the stakeholders in the final order, Election Commission of India has revised the existing nomenclature of certain constituencies. These include the Assembly seats at about 126, also Lok Sabha seats. These are the nomenclatures, these are the constituencies which have been affected. Delimitations refers to the exercise of demarcating boundaries and how the constituency or a particular parliamentary constituency or an assembly constituency is bound to be defined. Delimitation is an exercise that must be conducted at regular intervals in any democracy, and it forms the heart and soul of any democracy. The utopian idea is that each constituency must have the exact number of population and the size. This is something which is still being thought about in this country, but those are the crucial changes which are coming in. This delimitation order pertains to the state of Assam. The Election Commission has published this delimitation order. No change in the assembly and the parliamentary seats that have been talked about. They remain like they were. That's the bit of latest news which is coming in right now. And this, of course, would be a sigh of relief to many political parties who were watching the developments very closely. I want to cut across to my colleague Pallavi, who's with us on the broadcast, getting us more details on the story. Pallavi, tell us more about this.
So, as you know, Anusha, over the last few weeks and months, really, the Election Commission team has been going around in Assam, and they were reorganizing the constituencies, even the parliamentary as well as the assembly constituencies. It was done on the basis of, the people, the demography, all these factors were kept in mind, and many of those constituencies have now been redrawn. Some of them has been delimited. I think the big news really over here are the parliamentary constituencies which have been delimited. For example, Guwahati, and one of them is Silchar. Now, Silchar, for example, has been a parliamentary constituency of the present Rajya Sabha member Sushmita Dev, who of course is going to be retiring next month. Her constituency becomes reserved, which means she cannot contest from there.
The fact that delimitation exercise, Pallavi, has been extensively debated upon in this country, and there are a lot of people who also argue that till a caste census is conducted in this country, you cannot do a nationwide delimitation exercise. With respect to Assam, how critical this publication by Election Commission really is?
So basically the allegation which is coming in from the opposition parties, particularly the Congress party, is that it's been deliberately done in such a way where it suits the BJP politically speaking. It's done actually on the basis of religion, and this is something which will help the BJP in terms of winning seats both for Lok Sabha and then whenever the assembly elections are held, and it's been done in a very arbitrary manner. Though the Election Commission has repeatedly issued a clarification that we've gone region by region, spoken to the people, seen the demography, also seen the origins, and therefore to make this kind of an allegation is completely baseless. The government has always made the point that Election Commission is an autonomous body and we have got nothing to do with it. It's a process of delimitation which actually can have a deep political impact, not just limited to Assam but in other states as well. And this is a point which has often been made by opposition parties, including the southern parties, who say the delimitation will be done and the reorganization will be done in such a manner that we are the ones who are going to be affected the most, and it's going to become North or Hindi belt heavy.
All right, Pallavi, thank you so much for putting those very critical developments into perspective for us. The Election Commission of India has published the final delimitation order for assembly and parliamentary constituencies for the state of Assam. This is after extensive consultation. No major changes have been proposed by the Election Commission. Well, shifting our focus, key changes were proposed by the Union Home Minister as he sought to overhaul three crucial statutes that govern the Indian legal system: the Indian Evidence Act, the Criminal Procedure Code, and the Indian Penal Code. One of the key changes through these proposed changes on the floor of the House that was talked about is doing away with the offence of sedition. 124A has already been put in abeyance by the Supreme Court of India. The law is not operative. However, for the centre to say that they are willingly ready to do away with sedition and bring in a different penal code altogether to govern the offences against the state is a huge step forward for the central government in the right direction. This was something that was extensively talked about. We talk about the story.
तीनों कानूनों में गुलामियों की निशानी से भरे हुए कानून, राजद्रोह को कंप्लीटली हम रिपील कर रहे हैं, कंप्लीटली रिपील। यहां लोकतंत्र, सबको बोलने का अधिकार है, राजद्रोह को हम कंप्लीटली रिपील कर रहे हैं। मान्यवर, सबसे पहला चैप्टर इसमें आएगा महिलाओं और बालकों के साथ अपराध।
Well, this story, the government today introduced bills for complete overhaul of the criminal laws. The 3 bills have already been referred to a select committee. While tabling the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita bill, which aims to replace the Indian Penal Code, Union Home Minister Amit Shah said that under this, laws like sedition or the colonial baggage need to be done away with. A new offence on acts like secession, armed rebellion, subversive activities, separatist activities or endangering the sovereignty and unity and integrity of India has been added in the revised laws. These are proposed laws, not passed yet, still with a select committee. Home Minister Amit Shah added that the centre will also introduce the provision of capital punishment in mob lynching cases in case there is a death. The new bill prioritizes laws for crime against women and children as well, and there is a provision that in certain special cases there can also be a death sentence in rape cases when it's with a minor below the age of 12. We get to you the voice that we heard from the Union Home Minister on the floor of the House.
राजद्रोह पर ये अंग्रेजों ने अपने शासन को बचाने के लिए एक कानून बना था। मैं इस सदन को कहना चाहता हूं, एक ऐतिहासिक निर्णय इस सरकार ने किया है। राजद्रोह को कंप्लीटली हम रिपील कर रहे हैं, कंप्लीटली। यहां लोकतंत्र है, सबको बोलने का अधिकार है। राजद्रोह को हम कंप्लीटली रिपील कर रहे हैं मान्यवर। और इस कानून में इसके साथ साथ अलगाव, सशस्त्र विद्रोह, विध्वंसक गतिविधियां, अलगाववाद, भारत की संप्रभुता, एकता को, अखंडता को चैलेंज करना, ये सब को कानून के अंदर किसी न किसी दाएं बाएं तोड़ मरोड़ कर जोड़ते थे। इसका कोई स्पेशल प्रोविजन नहीं था, टेररिज्म की व्याख्या ही नहीं थी। पहली बार अब इसकी व्याख्या हो रही है और जुड़ी संपत्ति को कुर्क करने का अधिकार भी। मान्यवर, जांच करने वाले पुलिस अधिकारी के संज्ञान पर कोर्ट इस पर ऑर्डर करेगा। कुर्की का ऑर्डर पुलिस अधिकारी नहीं कर पाएंगे, निर्णय नहीं कर पाएंगे, कोर्ट में सुनवाई के बाद होगा। माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, मैं बिल स्टैंडिंग कमेटी को भेजने वाला हूं, इसलिए बहुत लंबा नहीं बोलूंगा, परंतु इतना जरूर कहना चाहता हूं कि जिन्होंने भी ये कानूनों को पढ़ा होगा, इसकी प्रायोरिटी क्या थी। मानवी की हत्या से या महिला के साथ दुराचार से बड़ा कोई कानून अपराध नहीं हो सकता, तो इसको 302 नंबर पर स्थान दिया गया। इसके पहले क्या था? राजद्रोह था। इसके पहले क्या था? खजाने की लूट थी। इसके पहले क्या था? शासन के अधिकारी पर हमला था। ये जो अप्रोच है, ये अप्रोच को हम बदल रहे हैं। सबसे पहला चैप्टर इसमें आएगा महिलाओं और बालकों के साथ अपराध। मान्यवर, भारतीय नागरिक सुरक्षा संहिता जो सीआरपीसी को रिप्लेस करेगी, इसमें अब 533 धाराएं बचेगी। 160 धाराओं को बदल दिया गया है, 9 धाराएं नई जोड़ी गई है और 9 धाराओं को निरस्त किया गया है। भारतीय न्याय संहिता जो आईपीसी को रिप्लेस करेगी, इसमें अब पहले 511 धाराएं थी, इसकी जगह 356 धाराएं होगी। 175 धाराओं में बदलाव हुआ है, 8 नई धाराएं जोड़ी गई है और 22 धाराएं निरस्त कर दी गई। भारतीय साक्ष्य अधिनियम जो एविडेंस एक्ट को रिप्लेस करेगा, इसमें 170 धाराएं होगी, पहले 167 थी। 23 धाराओं में बदलाव किया है, 1 धारा नई जोड़ी गई है और 5 धाराएं निरस्त की है। मान्यवर, मैं सदन को बताना